All right, everybody, and welcome to another great episode here. Part two, well, episode two, more like it, for straight to the points. As always, this podcast is brought to you by Kestrel Insights, where location data and visibility come to play, and the art of polygonal geofencing, and much, much more. And we're welcomed today by Lucas, who's the CEO of Kestrel. So good to see you again, Lucas. How you been? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having us. Thanks for putting these on. Adam and the team over at TRA are rock stars, so check them out. But yeah, things have been going
Thanks, man.
well. Yeah, we're excited to have Eric here today. Eric and VendorFlow is just a super cool solution. So we'll chat about that. But yeah, Lucas Schorer, founder, CEO over here at Kestrel Insights. Our mission is really to advance the utilization, the impact, and really the understanding of geofencing. So all kinds of different applications, and yeah, looking forward to chatting about it today.
Excellent. And Mr. Eric Rodriguez, you and I have known each other now for a little over a year. It's been nice to see VendorFlow grow over the years. So tell us a little bit about yourself and VendorFlow.
Appreciate that, Adam, and great to be on the podcast. Appreciate you too, Lucas. Yeah,
Yeah.
for VendorFlow, we've been in market for a few years. Driver communication software, mostly fleets use us as well as freight brokers for better engaging truck drivers in safe and compliant ways, but that are also conducive to productivity to get workflows done. And yeah, we saw an awesome opportunity of how this can overlap it with Kestrel and geofencing. So there's a lot of fun topics I'm excited to get into today.
Eric,
A lot going
Eric
on in
is
the world
a
of fleet.
Yeah.
Eric is the mission of VendorFlow comes all the way through his personality. We were just in Orlando for Geotab and communication, planning, execution. The guy gets there and never seen someone hit a conference, as organized as him. So it's great to see.
Got to keep it on brand, baby. That's right.
You
Absolutely.
got to eat what you're cooking. That's right.
That's right. Love it.
Well, guys, we got you both here. We're going to talk a little bit about the intersection of automated workflows and modern freight communications, and particularly the technology and partners like yourself that come together to make this happen. And we're going to also talk about why that matters for the folks listening, fleets and brokers and other logistics professionals. So let's get into the role of location data and communication and freight, just to sort of set a baseline here. So on your side, Lucas, we talk a lot in this industry about AI and data and workflows and things like that, but don't hear a lot of conversations about the front end of that, where I call it data fidelity, data integrity, or maybe just accurate data. So, from your seat, why does accurate location data impact operations on the day to day?
I like it's interesting you say like the fidelity and the integrity, because when I always used to hear those words associated with data, it can seem like, oh, is there like a malicious intent, or is there like something of that source, rather just uh, missing the knowledge base of like how to achieve the accurate data you need. So that's what we run into a ton on the geofencing front, is like you're using geofences, you believe you have the arrival timestamps, the departure timestamps, and all the things to feed those workflows, and you don't realize that that geofence being slightly off, being in the wrong place, or just providing the wrong data points can have such a downstream effect. And so we got a guy on our team, Sid Severson, who I know you work a lot with, Adam, on the marketing side. He had this like light bulb moment recently this year of he was watching a Super Bowl ad or something, and it was for drill bits, and it was like, you're not buying drill bits, you're buying holes, and it like set off this thing for us of like, you're not buying geofences, you're buying better workflows, better triggers, you're buying a better business because of like the downstream effect of this simple shape on a map. Like the concept of what we do is very, very straightforward, but that the data integrity, like you said, and the fidelity of having the right geofences is just such a butterfly effect throughout a business. So that's one of the biggest things we see on like the data accuracy side, is just how simple the wrong geofence or the right geofence can really proliferate throughout a business. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things we see, and that our conversations have taken on a new form of customers and prospects, and just people interested in what we're doing. So that's a big piece we see on the data side.
Well, you talked about drills. I'm not much of a handyman, and I've been there where I've gotten the wrong size drill bit. So you really are looking for holes. If you got a drill bit that is not gonna get you the right size or isn't of the right material, maybe it's not a wood drill bit like you need, you're not gonna get that hole that you wanted. And it's the same thing, like you said, with geofencing. It's an enabler. an enabler to
Mhm.
a workflow, an enabler to the next best action. And that's why I think you work pretty well with Eric over at VendorFlow, because when it comes to communications, there's typically a trigger point that requires that communication. So why is that effective communication really important, Eric, particularly for logistics teams?
Oh yeah, there's so much in communications. It's funny the way that communications just permeates this whole industry, and yet there have not been that many solutions that are specifically built for the trucking logistics industries. If I may back up a little, VendorFlow, we are a UCaaS provider, Unified Communications as a Service, so voice and texting, perhaps some SAR messaging, modem messaging, geotab messaging, as well, type of channels to better engage these truck drivers. But what Lucas is getting at, absolutely. When you have your data figured out, that's something that Lucas can help with. Then you can hook in a vendor flow type of entity to trigger these workflows to text that driver when they pierce that geofence for all sorts of user stories that we can get into together in time here. Yeah.
Well, maybe tell me a little bit about a real world example where both location intelligence and communication mattered. Maybe an anecdote or just an
Yeah,
example.
sure. I mean, one that we've been getting a great deal of interested in recently is from a trucking company that runs a drop yard type of drop and hook type of model. So their situation is every time a truck driver drops a loaded container or a loaded trailer, well, they want to make sure that that truck driver is checking to see are there any empties they can take on their way out. Because if they don't, if they bobtail out, then according to that business owner, it costs them about $150 to get that empty covered by somebody else. So it's really
Mm.
important the moment that driver pierces that geofence to step one, remind them, hey, remember you're supposed to be looking for empties. But ideally, if we're getting fancy together, provide that driver with a list of available empties that they can then book. So because how otherwise could you expect a dispatcher to be such a perfect like hovering just to know where everyone is and to go remind them? Well, that would be really painful. But if you could set up these rules, thanks to the right geofencing, there's a lot that can be done to save hard dollars.
And those add up. Have you
Oh, yeah.
seen anything, Lucas, talking about hard dollars where inaccurate geofencing led to more expensive costs?
Oh yeah. And kind of to add on to Eric's point a little bit, like I think he's spot on in terms of, the dispatcher, the art of the dispatcher is knowing when to insert themselves into that workflow of the driver's day because, and we all see it in daily life of if you get the reminder at the wrong time, 5 minutes too early, 5 minutes too late, you forget about it or it's too late, or like knowing when and where to ingest or insert yourself into like that workflow on the communication side is huge. And so that's one of the biggest things that we see is making sure that reminder, that trigger, that workflow, whatever, it starts at the exact time that it needs to. So yeah, I totally agree with that. That kind of the way Eric looks at it there. For us, yeah, we see some of the simplest things result in just wild impacts from a dollar perspective. Uh, Two things for us. So no matter what the use case is, anyone who's interested in what we're doing, working with us today, their use case could range all across the board, but it always comes down to two different things, or one of two things, or both of these. Number one is automation. So they don't want to be drawing these geofences anymore because that's the solution on almost any platform is yes, you can use polygon geofences, but you have to draw them. And that takes a long time. So we typically see 7.5 to 9 minutes per geofence. By the time you get to your desk, you look up the address, or first you find the address you need to go to, you look it up, you research the boundaries, you create it, you save it, and you follow up with it. That is the most simple ROI. 7.5 minutes times your hourly rate, boom. But the second one is accuracy. So automation and accuracy are the big ones. Accuracy is that polygon, going from a circle to a polygon. And that is sometimes a more difficult ROI to capture because say, okay, what is the impact that now I'm saving with Kestrel downstream? But we have some great use cases of early on. We told this story of a truck driver who the platform they were on was using geofences to authenticate, basically dropping a trailer and leaving. And the platform was using these circular geofences, and it just barely covered this little parking area outside of the locked gate. And so it was a truck full of dog food and kind of a ridiculous uh, freight in there, but the platform allowed them to check out. They left the trailer and ended up getting broken into and completely cleared out. Ended up being, I think, 125K impact. So yeah, simple things like that where accuracy can really have an issue. And from there, we've got tons and tons of examples over the years now that we've been doing this for so long. So yeah, we saw the other day that we've had over 1 million unique requests come in for locations. So that
Oh,
flywheel and that
wow.
momentum of the use cases we're starting to see is pretty cool. So yeah, we've got a lot of cool impacts.
What about expectations though, right? I used to tell people this when Amazon was starting to master logistics, and this was mid 2010s or so when they got really good at it, started introducing next day and ultimately same day. And it almost felt unfair to the 3PLs of the world that Amazon was doing this with their massive war chest. And it was like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to set these expectations because
Mhm.
whatever sets expectations in the consumer world invariably bleeds over to the B2B world because we're humans and we get used to
Mhm.
things. And I think about just the COVID period and all of us ordering on DoorDash. You know, DoorDash has partnered with Mapbox, who you know, Lucas, for their
Mhm.
location data. And imagine if you had food coming and that was entirely inaccurate and you had, you know, you were depending upon a Chick-fil-A nugget meal for your kid's 8th birthday party. And this guy's over in the town over, but it says he's right outside. How frustrating that would be. Imagine all the time wasted to get it right. I mean, these workflows are critical and can only really be pulled off with that accurate location data and the ability to plug that into an effective communication workflow. So let's talk about where people need to point out maybe some challenges of the industry and where they fall short and where some of these tactics and best practice use cases can be put together. So, Eric, what are some of the pitfalls you see in your workspace when it comes to automated workflows, triggers, and reporting, and that you've seen common with fleets or brokers?
Well, it's funny. There's a nice analogy between Kestrel and VendorFlow here. From what I'm understanding on the Kestrel side, they lay a certain foundation, a fundamental groundwork. If you don't have your geofences straight, it's going to be hard to do anything much more ambitious from there, right? Similar analogy here with VendorFlow. If you're using a generic communication solution, Google Voice, RingCentral, Dialpad, and the rest, 8x8, right, generics, then good luck having that hook up into meaningful TMS or ELD driven workflows. So we provide that fundamental for the customer to integrate with Samsara, Geotab, and coming very soon, Motive as well. So that's a foundation that we offer as well, and then we can hook in together with Lucas. But more broadly, if I may, the industry is super funny in the communications domain. It's not a well-solved story. You talk to most fleet operators, and they'll tell you all types of different ways that they do their driver communications. There can be using Microsoft Teams, so the driver installs Teams or Slack or GChat or WhatsApp or Telegram or Facebook Messenger. We've seen all sorts of different things. There's Samsara messaging, Motive messaging, Geotab messaging, right? TMS app messaging, and not to mention, of course, SMS and all the VIPs. It gets really wild. It's a wild west out there. And we're out here to say, hey, we can provide you these best practices around communications that is first safe and compliant, because let's be honest, texting and driving, that's a legitimate concern. We can mitigate and eliminate those concerns thanks to ELD integration, and then really get to the good stuff, which gets into this sort of geofencing integration to really save productivity and other sort of savings for the business. So there's a whole universe here. I could go on and on about.
What about you, Lucas? I mean, when you're talking to people and they haven't implemented polygonal geofencing, what are some of the pitfalls that you see in that workflow arena?
I mean, I think Eric nailed it with like that first comment about this analogy between the two of us is like getting your foundation set up to then go execute like this broader vision. And I am by no means an AI savant, advanced knowledge of what all these models and all these things, but I think AI is like a really interesting thing that is so in our face that is a very good parallel to kind of where we live of like AI is two things. It needs the tech and the intelligence of itself to be able to digest all this data to spit out results and analyze things, but it needs that data to do that. And so we very much focus on that data piece of like, yeah, there's these awesome platforms out there, all these telematics, tracking, visibility tools, but for them to really execute at their full potential, they need that good data set to rely on it to feed all these cool products that they have built into it. So some of the biggest pitfalls we see is skipping step one of getting that data set, really honed in and right for your business to then go, take advantage of all these products that you're paying for. If you're paying for a telematics solution, there's so many things in there that you can use. before jumping into it and going after it, make sure what you're gonna have before it, the data sets are really clean. That's where geofencing comes in. So luckily, if we come in at that stage, ideally where it's earlier and we're setting up data sets before they do all that, obviously that's great. But even if you've gone down that rabbit hole of trying to take advantage of these tools and you're just seeing shortcomings because the triggers from the geofences are bad, you acknowledge that there's something there. We can still help tremendously. Like just, hey, we'll get that data set cleaned up almost immediately, and now you'll start to see the benefit of all these things. So that's some of the biggest shortfalls we see is the focus on the full picture versus just like, hey, there's this really cool feature I want to jump on in my telematics. So that's what we like to talk to and kind of do discovery on with people is, hey, what's going on there? Tell us about it. Let us share with you what we see from our side of the business.
Well, you guys are both talking about a lot of tactics, right, in the inefficient world. Eric, you really stressed me out when you started talking about all those communication channels. Then I started thinking about my life and thinking about how notifications are probably giving me brain rot. You didn't mention Signal, though. That's another one people use, apparently.
That would be more topical now, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well,
but there's just a lot of communication things out there that you have to deal with, and I think what maybe people aren't thinking about is the bigger picture. Just like both of you said, it starts with strategy almost. What are we trying to achieve? And you'd mentioned Geotab and Motive and some of these marketplace apps. Why are these apps coming on board? Why are VendorFlow and Kestrel working with those kinds of companies like Geotab and Motive and Samsara? Why is it important they work together?
Eric, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, it's to be honest with you, Adam, if you interviewed me and you said, how does communications and ELD interact 2 years ago? I would have said, I don't know, even though I'm supposedly a communications guy. Well, it's because we learned from our customers. They gave us feedback in all sorts of realms. It's in three categories, really: safety, compliance, productivity. Safety is to say, okay, let's say you're a safety leader of a fleet and you acknowledge reluctantly that your dispatch team is texting drivers. Okay, well, with integration with Samsara, though, we can greatly mitigate that risk. So when dispatch is firing a text at a driver or trying to, we can say, hey, is that truck moving right now? If it's moving, we can hold the text, queue it up, deliver it when the truck is stopped or in park, right? So that's a major safety benefit to enable this easy channel texting in a way that's safe. That's what's important here. And compliance-wise, a classic would be things like drivers violating the brakes, sending them a reminder to say, hey, your brake is coming up, and to reduce the brakes, reduce the cases of texting drivers when they're off duty. These are all signals that we get from Geotab, Motive, Samsara, and the rest. We think of them as sort of the brains, the context, and we are sort of the workflow that can be built upon that to say, hey, if this then, oh, you want to remind your driver about something? Beautiful. And in the productivity realm, though, indeed, the majority of use cases we're getting and the requests we're getting are indeed about the geofencing related stories. Whether it's remind them to take an empty, or it's hey, if you're really aspirational, you want to give that driver a profile of the site that they're arriving to. Hey, this site has these attributes. It does have a bathroom, thank goodness. It does have these qualities and driver lounge and so on. It can provide a better driver experience as well. So, yeah.
What about you, Lucas?
I think the marketplace kind of growth is super interesting because, well, it's not everyone does it. Like there's plenty of different platforms that are exact competitors, exact replicas, a lot of the ones we work with that simply don't have the marketplace offering. And I think it's an interesting approach because it's, the way just tech advances, it's moving so fast, and there's the platforms that do open up these marketplaces. It's almost this like removal of the ego of like, hey, we acknowledge that there's other rock star platforms out there that are in this space next to us that, yes, we could as a platform maybe build solutions for, but does that distract us from our core competency of whatever the platform's doing? And hey, we want to focus on what we have built the customer base around and clearly been successful at, and then just allow these other people to kind of build solutions under our umbrella that our customers are asking for. So I think the people that set up the marketplaces are already awesome people to work with because they just have that mindset of even like, hey, there's other cool things out there that our customers want and need, and let's make it available. So that is an interesting part where you see marketplaces growing, and with other platforms and not some. I also think like as a marketplace partner, we're not we're not necessarily like solutions for everyone. And so you almost bring these kind of niche needs or niche solutions to the industry. We're like, hey, we talk to plenty of people where it's like, hey, circular geofences work for us fine because we're going out to oil patches in the middle of nowhere and there's no overlap and then blah 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 and we're fine. Or we only have like 10 geofences. Perfect. Like use the rest of all the cool features on this platform. But then there's a good chunk of like people that are like, hey, this works really well for my business, and the combination of these two platforms is just like an epic package. So um, that's where I think it's been interesting to like work in some of these marketplaces. And there's also different like you see different internal mentalities with these teams, like the AEs and the sales engineers and the customer success people are like they're so great to build relationships with because they are eyes and ears on the ground with so many people and like, hey, I heard this geofencing thing pop up, or I heard this communication thing pop up, or I need vendor flow. And building, it's very much like a channel and a relationship building process than kind of some of our other, I guess, sales approaches. So I love it. I think it's a cool atmosphere. And you really get to you get to be a part of a bigger thing. Like, let's say we're in the Samsara marketplace, like just to be associated with that and being able to kind of ride their coattails and support their users is cool. Eric and I, we're both small teams, small startups, and having like the trust, like Samsara and some of these other guys, they beat you up to get you in the marketplace, as they should. Like they want to make sure it's tested, it's well, because if they're going to put it out there, they're going to put their name on it in their marketplace. You guys got to be ready to go. And so it's cool to go through that process and come out the other side with a product that they agree is a differentiator. So I love it.
And I'd like to just echo a little bit of that, Lucas.
Yeah.
So same. And I'll just add a little bit more about how I commend how these ELD providers are, most of them, not all, but most, they're very easy to work with, my goodness, because that's not always the case across logistics and trucking software. Sometimes you got to know a guy, or like they got to decide if they like you or this or that, or they have APIs and then you take a closer look and it's kind of like, not really. No, the ELDs by and large, certainly Samsara, Geotab, Motive have been the real deal and very welcoming. It's please integrate with us rather than this sort of who are you bouncer at the door type of vibe. So I commend them on that.
Different mentality too, Eric.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like I've been in this industry probably for about 15 years, and when I first came in, it was on-prem TMS that was supposed to do it all, single pane of glass. And what I've seen over the last decade is the unbundling of the single pane of glass, where you have a core open source, nice, friendly API type of platform, and it's going to be able to connect to multiple people who are really good at what they do. And I don't think that's much different than the finance world or much different than the consumer world. And it's good to see that the logistics professionals of the future are going to start thinking like their other counterparts and say, what's my tech stack look like, right? Mm-hmm. I work in marketing, so we talk about our marketing tech stack quite a bit. And we're seeing the rise of the supply chain or the logistics or the freight tech stack. And as a fleet manager, you're now this superhuman who is backed by so much technology to unlock efficiencies that you never even maybe considered. And particularly if you're starting out in your career, this is either going to have two paths. You're going to have people who go, I just trust the technology and I don't even want to know what the underlying thing is. And then you're going to have those people who are going to want to dig deeper, and they're really going to leverage as much technology as they can to be more successful. I mean, I don't know how many times people are going to raise money if they have an AI agent company here in logistics, but it seems we're up to 4 or 5 in the last 6 weeks. So I'm sure there's a few more to come. But we've seen the rise of AI agents, automation, blockchain. It's all supposed to unlock better decision making at the end of the day. So maybe from your perspective, considering this future, Eric, what does that mean for VendorFlow, and what does that mean for the future in relation to your business?
It's an exciting time, and to be honest, I had to really reflect on this over the last 3-4 months on how does VendorFlow relate to these various AI companies? Are they competitors? Are they partners? Are they this? Are they that? Thankfully, we regard them as partners. So we are the phone system. We are the phone system. And if one of our customers, whether a broker or a fleet, loves one of the AI providers and they want to flow those AI flows through our infrastructure, our phone system, That's totally cool. So within the VendorFlow interface, you want to click a button that fires a robocall that's not really our robocall logic. It's an AI provider's logic. Beautiful. No problem at all. So that's been our general orientation. And we have gotten some requests in the AI realm. I wouldn't go so far to identify as an AI company, but we might offer some from very basic use cases. Things like this. Here we go. Driver crosses a geofence. Send them a reminder that says, hey, did you X, Y, and Z for a special SOP? And to hear their reactions verbally. And based on how they responded verbally, natural language processing, to interpret that response and then update the TMS accordingly, whether they did the thing or whatever the story may be. It varies a lot in logistics, as you guys know.
Well, and it does. And I think a lot of people are going to get confused in some ways and start to shut down a little bit. But how do you keep them grounded, Lucas? How do you make them feel okay that the rise of all of this AI and automation, it doesn't mean that you have to be an expert, but here's what's important. How do you connect to them?
My own my limited knowledge of AI and willing to be very much alongside all those people as well is I think helpful. Hey, I'm learning just as much as everyone else. I think that Eric and I were just in Orlando at the GeoTab conference, and the CEO Neil Cause had an interesting comment where he said, he gets asked all the time, "Is AI going to replace my job? Is AI going to replace my job?" And his answer is, AI is not going to replace your job. Someone who uses AI is going to replace your job. And so I thought that was interesting, looking at it as certainly an asset and figuring out ways it impacts your business and your role and things like that. I thought was pretty cool. And I think we parallel that too of the combination of the tracking and the workflows with geofences versus the tracking and the workflows with Kestrel is very much a supportive tool, not looking to eliminate anyone or anything or stuff like that, but support people that are in these roles. Eric made the dispatcher comment, that dispatcher is still needed there. They have an incredible role, but empowering them to, instead of covering 10 loads, cover 20 or whatever it is. So we come at it very much from that perspective and really believe that. That's not just, something we say in smoke and mirrors, but we really look at it as, hey, this is a tool to empower what you're doing today. I'm not trying to kick anyone out or remove anyone, but look at it as a strategic advantage versus a threat or something like that. And I do really also believe the people who look at it as a threat, I just think have a different mindset than people who automatically come into things curious, wondering how it can impact their job in a positive way. It's just people, different people you run into and how they approach things like that. So we try to support that idea and that mindset around AI or these tools that could replace. That's kind of how I think about it.
And if I may add a little more to it, Lucas, I share your view. I would characterize it as a human in the loop kind of ideology. I believe it's going to be very much human in the loop. And indeed, VendorFlow is principally used by humans for sure, for operations users, dispatchers, right? But yeah, if it flows some AI workflows through that phone line and the human observes that it's happening, no problem. And if there's some kind of exception, okay, it can escalate to the human and they can handle it. That's our general attitude about it. But it's a funny time. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely a great deal of clear value with the AI topics, but there's some funky wars coming about, such as, I talked to a carrier and the carrier said, hey, if we ever dial a load board number and we get some robot experience, not only do we hang up, but we blacklist that broker or whoever put that out. Ooh, spicy. So we'll see kind of how the almost the game theory of it shakes out, because both parties are using an AI bot at each other. What is that all about? It's going to be interesting how the cookie crumbles, but who am I to say how it's going to actually crumble?
Yeah. Well, I know in marketing, when people sort of shut down and it gets too busy and it's too much technology, it's too many tactics. How do I stay strategic? It's all about the fundamentals. You typically go back to the fundamentals. And you say, what is communication? It's distribution of information to a channel that is received, right? What is location? And how do you simplify that? Well, first of all, is the location the exact accurate location? Are you able to capture that data? Are you able to push it through to somewhere so it can enable the next best action or the trigger? And I think when you start fundamentally, as both of you guys have really described the fundamentals in this podcast, you can start making these people realize that it's not there as a competition. It's there as an enabler to get that hole that you wanted to drill, right? And at the
There
end
you
of the
go.
day, if you focus on outcomes and you focus on the fundamentals, everything in between is configurable. And you can set up that path or that pipe to distribute to that channel, go to that right actor who can then make a decision or act to be more efficient. So, all right. Well, AI is fun, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it more than blockchain, is my guess. But let's get kind of to some closing thoughts here. What were some of the key takeaways you had from the discussion, Eric? What do you think people need to take away from this episode?
I'm really excited about the analogy I see here between Kestrel Insights and VendorFlow as foundational in nature. Get your geofencing straight, and you're in much better shape to run all sorts of workflows to better automate your fleet and improve operations. Get VendorFlow in place, and you're much more foundational with your communications too. And thematically, between both of us, to think about how can you make the most of your ELD, your Samsara, your Geotab, your Motive. There are so many integrations you can add upon those systems. There's so much power that they have, and to think about this sort of app ecosystem in ways to add more value to the business. I love those parallels. So there's a couple takeaways for me.
Well, what about you, Lucas? I mean, you had talked about, I go back to the hole again. Not only can you drill the hole you want, you can drill that hole over and over and over again if you have the right drill. So maybe from your perspective, Lucas, what should people take away from this episode?
Yeah, I echo everything that Eric said and that you said too, Adam, about the foundational stuff. I think to make sure you look at kind of the front of house and the back of house for any technology thing, anything in your tech stack that you're rolling out. So the front of house being the actual feature and the workflow, but then the back of house, what is the data that feeds that feature or workflow or trigger? Because it's just as important, and it will save you a lot of time down the road. So that's kind of the one thing I would definitely mention, and also kind of echoing Eric's comment about the marketplaces. Reach out to anything that seems interesting to you in a marketplace. Those people are there to give you a 5, 10, 15-minute snippet of what they're about. What I typically see is like with us for sure, and other marketplace offerings, I'm sure Eric would echo this too, is like you'll know what we do quickly. One demo, 15-minute overview, you're going to get it. And then you'll have the tools to go chat with your team about like, hey, is this something good for us? I think a lot of us in the marketplaces are built to be like or extremely turnkey, if not fully turnkey, quick to understand and see where it fits, and then know if you need to get up and running. So they're not these daunting conversations or potential tech evaluations of like, hey, we need engineers and CEOs and all these things. Like we support these features within a bigger system. So encourage people just to reach out and learn more as if it seems anything related to what they're doing. And I love talking to anyone and everyone.
Sweet. Well, speaking of reaching out, Eric, how can people learn more about VendorFlow?
Appreciate it. VendorFlow.co is the website. Social media wise, we spend by far most of our time on LinkedIn. So I encourage people to follow us on LinkedIn. Maybe now's not the time, but you just want to get a rough sense of how we're developing. Follow us on LinkedIn. That's where it's going down.
Perfect. What about you, Lucas?
Same thing on LinkedIn. That's where we spend most of our time, especially in the B2B world. And then, KestrelInsights.com. You can get sample data sets. You can submit an address, see what a geofence looks like for any place you want. And we'll be there to respond and touch base. Awesome.
Well, everybody definitely reach out to these great entrepreneurs and see what they can do for you. Really enjoyed the conversation, fellas. I definitely learned a lot myself. I'm going to use the drill and hole thing over and over and over again until we have to change that metaphor. But I really, really like it. Starts with foundational data. That's going to enable workflows for communication and better efficiency. And at the end of the day, it's going to save real world dollars, like some of the examples that you guys said before. So if you're out there, reach out to these two great companies. And for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in and spending a little bit of time with Straight to the Points. I'm Adam Robinson, host of Straight to the Points. I'm here with Lucas Schorer, CEO of Kestrel Insights, and Eric Rodriguez, CEO of VendorFlow. Thanks, guys.